Good evening, detectives. Welcome back to CSI Poetry Unit. Miss B here, head of psychological profiling and now, apparently, frozen dessert-related crime. Tonight's case is unusual. Not a murder, not a robbery, not even a stolen Wi-Fi router. A snowman has been stolen. And yet, this may be one of the most psychologically complex cases we've ever encountered. This is Stealing by Carol Ann Duffy, a poem about boredom, emotional numbness, and making terrible life choices in winter. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to analyze this poem like a profiler, drop top-tier literary terminology, and explain it in a way that actually makes sense. Let's open the case file. Let's examine the opening line. The most unusual thing I ever stole? Ah, yes, the rhetorical question. A classic interrogation device. Except, plot twist, we never hear the interviewer, which gives us a dramatic monologue, a form where one speaker reveals their psyche, often without meaning to. So what does this tell us? Our suspect is not just answering questions, they're performing their identity. And badly, I might add. It's like being in an interview where only one person showed up and still managed to overshare. The opening line of Stealing: the most unusual thing I ever stole? A snowman. Here's what's happening. The speaker poses a question, then immediately answers it themselves. That is textbook definition of hyperphora. Why does this matter? This isn't just a fancy term. It actually deepens your interpretation. It reinforces the interview interrogation feel. Like the speaker is responding to unseen questioning. It highlights control over the narrative. The speaker decides both the question and the answer. I'll interrogate myself, thanks. It subtly reveals isolation. No real dialogue, just a one-person Q&A session. The loneliest podcast ever recorded. Hyperphora here also contributes to the dramatic monologue form because the speaker appears to be in conversation but is actually revealing their psyche, unintentionally of course. In other words, they think they're answering a question, but they're actually exposing themselves. CSI verdict. Cause of technique, hyperphora. Function, creates conversational tone, suggests interrogation, reinforces isolation, gives insight into speaker's psychology, and possibly indicates they would not survive a real police interview. Before we fully profile the speaker, we need to understand the world they come from. Stealing was written in 1987 during Margaret Thatcher's time as Prime Minister in the UK. This period is often associated with high youth unemployment, widening class divisions, social alienation, especially in urban areas, a strong emphasis on individualism, reduced support for working class communities. In simpler terms, if you were young, broke and bored in the 1980s, society wasn't exactly rushing to help. Thatcherism in teen speak? Thatcher's message was basically, look after yourself or don't survive. This led to a breakdown of community support, a sense of being forgotten or invisible, young people feeling disconnected from purpose or future, and that emotional climate feeds directly into the speaker. How does context shape the speaker? The speaker in Stealing isn't stealing for money. They're not desperate, they're bored. That boredom reflects a lack of opportunity, emotional numbness, social neglect. Stealing becomes a form of rebellion, self-expression, proof of existence. In a society that doesn't notice them, they make themselves noticed through destruction. How does context and technique combine to create juxtapositions that make more sense? Let's look at enjambment versus caesura. It's actually movement versus stoppage. Enjambment mirrors restless urban movement, wandering streets, stealing, joyriding. Caesura mirrors social dead ends, pauses, silences, nowhere to go. A generation constantly in motion with no direction. Then you get colloquial language versus poetic language. It's actually class versus sensitivity. Colloquial diction reflects working class urban identity. Poetic language reveals buried sensitivity. Duffy challenges the stereotype that marginalized youth and their lack of emotional depth. The speaker is not incapable of beauty, they've just been denied a space to grow it. Let's look at confidence versus isolation. It's actually performance versus reality. The confident tone masks vulnerability. The one-sided monologue suggests isolation. In a Thatcherite culture that values toughness and self-reliance, emotional expression is replaced with performance. Confidence becomes a defense mechanism. Written during the social fragmentation of 1980s Britain under Thatcher, Duffy's stealing reflects an emotional dislocation of a marginalized youth whose boredom, alienation, and destructive behavior are intensified through the poem's use of juxtaposed techniques. Now we talk structure. Control issues, anyone? 5 stanzas, 5 lines each. This is called a quintain structure. Very neat, very orderly, almost suspiciously tidy. Because inside these stanzas, absolute chaos, irregular meter, broken rhythms, disjointed phrasing. So what do we conclude? Externally, there's control, structure, law, order, all of which the speaker is an outcast from. Internally, meltdown, chaos, indiscipline, lack of social structure. This is the poetic equivalent of someone alphabetizing their bookshelf while their life is in flames. Now we examine the linguistic evidence of a split personality on the page. Let's examine the suspect speech patterns. Colloquial diction, mate, mucky, nick, non-standard grammar, fragmentation, and of course the iconic midnight snowman. These are minor sentences or holophrastic utterances. In similar terms, the suspect speaks like a malfunctioning GPS. Turn left, recalculating, existential crisis. We also have caesura, those pauses midline which mimic natural speech rhythms. But more importantly, they signal hesitation, instability, and possibly a brain buffering at 2%. On the one hand, we have colloquial language, mate, mucky, ghost, nick, boots it. This is informal, street level, almost abrasive. It places the speaker firmly in a world of roughness, rebellion, and let's be honest, questionable life decisions. And then, out of nowhere, we get this, a tall white mute beneath the winter moon. This is quite impressive. But excuse me, who invited the poet? Let's look at juxtaposition. What we're seeing here is called juxtaposition, specifically colloquial diction versus lyrical poetic imagery. And the contrast is jarring. It's like someone in a hoodie suddenly quoting Shakespeare at you. Suspicious, deeply suspicious. My CSI interpretation? This contrast is not accidental. It tells us something critical about the speaker, a divided identity. The colloquial voice suggests a lack of education or the rejection of it, social marginalization, emotional bluntness. But the poetic imagery, that suggests sensitivity, imagination, the capacity for beauty. So which is it? The answer is both. This is a speaker caught between what they are and what they could be. The failure to articulate and its meaning. Notice something. When the speaker describes the snowman, their language becomes elevated, almost lyrical. But when they describe their actions, we're back to blunt verbs, casual tones, emotional flatness. What does this suggest? They can see beauty, but cannot live it. It's like having access to poetry, but choosing chaos instead. It reflects emotional dissonance. The beautiful imagery creates a moment of stillness, clarity, almost peace. But it's immediately undercut by destruction, violence, indifference. This creates emotional dissonance. We feel the beauty and then watch the speaker destroy it. This suspect is capable of poetry, which makes their life choices even more disappointing. My final analytical verdict. The juxtaposition of colloquial language and poetic imagery reveals that the speaker possesses an inner sensitivity, but is trapped in a destructive mindset and cannot reconcile the two. As a result, they live a life where beauty is recognized, but never sustained. They can describe the moonlight, but they still choose to kick the snowman. And that, detectives, is the real tragedy of this case. Duffy combines the mechanics of disruption with the devastatingly chaotic effect. The cliff's edge of enjambment, combined with the brick wall of caesura, creates utter mayhem. Let's take the line, I joyride cars, enjambment, to nowhere. Cutting off a line before its natural stopping point forces the reader's eye down prematurely. It creates a restless, abrupt rhythm, mimicking the narrator's impulsive, aimless behavior. The brick wall, caesura. A snowman, midnight. Heavy midline pauses and fractured grammar force a defensive, clipped, and stilted breathing pattern like a cornered feral animal taking short, sharp breaths. Moving on to Duffy's linguistic toolkit. Sound devices such as internal rhyme emphasize a deeply introspective, trapped mindset. The use of sibilants creates this harsh, hissing, spiteful spitting of words, reflecting the sociopath's mindset. The devices of reflection in the imagery and metaphors used creates the unexpected burst of highly lyrical poetic observations in A Tall White Mute Beneath the Winter Moon. My breath ripped out in rags. The breathless destruction, something once useful, is now violently discarded. The devices of tone, colloquialism as in mucky, mate, flogged it, harsh, street-level slang masking a lack of formal education. The use of onomatopoeia as in ah, the tragic, inarticulate sigh of comfort in trespassing. For just one moment, we catch a glimpse into the heart of our criminal mastermind, the speaker. I wanted him, a mate with a mind as cold as a slice of ice within my own brain. We understand the connection. We get it. This is a profound, desperate need for companionship. And just as we summon up all our empathy and love for the misunderstood delinquent, the sociopathic cruelty deployed as heavy defensive shields go up again. Part of the thrill was knowing that children would cry in the morning. Life's tough. This supreme anti-authoritarian overcompensation is a reflection of the society in which he was raised. The society that has shunned him, saying, survive or die. Life is tough. So in the face of his felony, I would say, he's thrown this line right back at the children who would cry in the morning. The narrator opens with supreme confidence, leaning into cruelty to hide profound loneliness. The sardonic exclamation, life's tough, acts as a defensive mask for their insecurities. I now present you with the CSI diagnostic matrix between the snowman and the narrator. Why is it strange to want a snowman for a mate? Because it is an act of mirroring. Let's break it down. The snowman is literally freezing and is composed of winter elements. The narrator is psychologically detached, describing their own brain as having a slice of ice. The snowman is tall, white, and mute. The narrator has been ignored by society, lacking the language to articulate their pain. The snowman is inanimate, isolated in a yard, while the narrator is isolated, antisocial, feeling like a ghost, untethered from reality. Therefore, the snowman is a perfect metaphor for the protagonist. Stealing the snowman is an attempt to steal a reflection of themselves. Our delinquent, the speaker, shifts gears somewhat. The careless cruelty vanishes and is replaced by aimless, wistful detachment. They take us on a sort of vlog experience. Another cry for connection, perhaps? There's an admission of total purposelessness in the line, "Sometimes I steal things I don't need. I joyride cars to nowhere." The ghost in the mirror is what he sees. I'm a mucky ghost. They feel insubstantial, an apparition lacking substance. The narrator breaks into a stranger's bedroom just to look at the mirrors, not to steal, not to break things, just for connection, to look another human being in the eye. The ghost symbolizes someone who is unseen, unheard, and dead to society. And then comes the comfort zone, the onomatopoeic sigh. Reveals that this trespassing is their only moment of blissful relaxation. Standing in a stranger's house is the only way they feel they exist. The breaking point finally arrives in stanza 4. Reassembled in the yard, he didn't look the same. I took a run and booted him. Again. The act of violently kicking the snowman to pieces is a deeply symbolic act of self-destruction. The mirror is broken. Duffy uses enjambment to force the word alone onto its own isolated line, sort of a visual isolation. Alone among lumps of snow. Physically stranding the word alone. The diagnosis? The tough guy facade completely shatters with the confession. Sick of the world, the hatred is finally revealed to be fueled by intense sorrow. It seems that the speaker turns that hatred upon themselves. Stanza 5 takes us into the echo chamber of apathy. The excuse of boredom, the hyperbole, "Mostly I'm so bored I could eat myself," acts as a safeguard, framing severe criminal delinquency as mere boredom to avoid facing vulnerability. The failed aspiration. They try to steal objects to give life meaning, but immediately discard them to mask the failure of not achieving a goal. And then we go to the unanswered question. You don't understand a word I'm saying, do you? The cycle ends in profound isolation, highlighting society's absolute failure to understand them. A tour through the evidence room reveals a motley assortment of stolen items. The snowman, stolen for a mate, symbolizes a desperate need for companionship and emotional mirroring. The car, stolen for joyriding, symbolizes burning desire for escape, but tragically with no destination. The mirrors, stolen for looking, symbolizes introspection, a search for proof of existence and seeking an identity. Think of the poem Mirror we've studied recently. The guitar, stolen to learn to play, symbolizes a deep craving for an emotional outlet, expression, and communication. Shakespeare's bust, stolen for unclear reasons, symbolizes a theft of culture, literature, and the intellectual world entirely denied by society. After going through the evidence carefully, I have compiled this empathy curve. between the reader and the speaker. In stanza 1, the reader approaches the speaker with curiosity mixed with revulsion at the narrator's coldness. And then in stanza 2, there is downright disgust as the narrator takes joy in children crying. Then we get to stanza 3, where the reader feels some sort of intrigue as the narrator shows a quiet introspection, the ghost in the mirror. And in stanza 4, our pity deepens as their anger is revealed to be rooted in isolation. They're sick of the world, and who can blame them? And in the last stanza, we experience frustrated pity. The narrator remains irredeemable, but the underlying tragedy of their existence is fully exposed. My final diagnosis is that this is the ultimate theft. The synthesis of insight. The items stolen, the snowman, the guitar, the bust, the cars, are not random acts of vandalism. They are desperate, failed attempts to physically steal the abstract concepts the narrator has been denied: companionship, expression, culture, and escape. My conclusion is that due to the fact that one cannot steal a meaningful life by hoarding stolen objects, the thefts offer absolutely no relief. The destruction of the snowman proves the ultimate point of Duffy's monologue. The narrator's true crime is against themselves. They are a product of a society that has ignored them, punishing a world in which they cannot participate. The haunting last question, "You don't understand a word I'm saying, do you?" is more of an accusation than a question. If the entire poem is a defensive reaction to a society that left them behind, who is really on trial? The thief who stole the snowman, or the society listening? If you've enjoyed this tutorial, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It would really be helping me out. Thank you. See you next time.